Hello everybody, welcome to Stonx Music. Today we're going to be having a look at Ableton's auto filter in this week's deep dive session. Let's go! Right, so here we are at the Ableton manual. Let's have a look what they got to say. The auto filter effect provides classic analog filter emulation. It can be modulated by an envelope follower and or an LFO to create moving filter effects. The envelope follower can track either the filtered signal or an external sidechain source. Autofilter offers a variety of filter types including low pass, high pass, band pass, notch and a special morph filter. Each filter can be switched between 12 and 24 decibel slopes, as well as a selection of analog modelled circuit behaviours, developed in conjunction with Cytomic, that emulate hardware filters found on some classic analog synthesizers. The clean circuit option is a high quality CPU efficient design that is the same as the filters used in EQ8. This is available for all filter types. So, according to Ableton, using auto filter on clean, cut off at 100, should have the same effect as an EQ8 with cutoff. Bear in mind on your EQ8 we do have a difference between a 12 and 24 slope as well. So we'll do a little test and span and see if there are any differences there. The OSR circuit option is a state variable type with resonance limited by a unique hard clipping diode. This is modelled on the filters used in a somewhat rare British monosynth and is available for all filter types. My research probably leads me to believe it is from the Oscar, which is an Oxford synthesis company, old British monosynth. The MS2 circuit option uses a sailing key design and soft clipping to limit resonance. It's modelled on the filters used in a famous semi-modular Japanese monosynth and is available for the low pass and high pass filters. So I reckon this one's probably from the Korg MS20 maybe. It'll be one of their filters used on here. The SMP circuit is a custom design not based on any particular hardware. It shares characteristics of both the MS2 and PRD circuits and is available for the low pass and high pass filters. So I think this is something where they say it's characteristics of MS2 and PRD. So they've done all this modelling and then kind of jammed some bits together to create something unique. The PRD circuit uses a ladder design and has no explicit resonance limiting. It's modelled on the filters used in a legacy dual oscillator monosynth from the United States and is available for the low pass and high pass filters. So I think that's going to be the Moog. I think that's the Moog ladder filter. There we go. So this is an article. I'll put the link in the description if you want to read that from Universal Audio, explaining the early history of these kind of filters and how they worked and what they did. The most important filter parameters are the typical synth controls, frequency and resonance. Frequency determines where in the harmonic spectrum the filter is applied. Resonance boosts frequencies near that point. When using the low pass, high pass or band pass filter with any circuit type besides clean, there is an additional drive control that can be used to add gain or distortion to the signal before it enters the filter. The morph filter has an additional morph control which sweeps the filter type continuously from low pass, band pass to high pass to notch and back to low pass. Now this one is really nice. I don't actually use it much on auto filter itself, but inside Sampler, I'm not sure, sorry. We have the same morph on the filter in there and I use that quite a lot when I'm making these kind of neuro nasty mover sounds. So here's a quick tip. You can quickly snap the morph control to a low pass, band pass, high pass or notch setting via dedicated options in the right click PC or control click Mac context menu in the morph knob. You can adjust frequency and resonance by clicking and dragging in the XY controller or via the knobs. You can also click on the frequency and resonance numeric displays and type in exact values. When using the non-clean circuit types, the resonant control allows for self-oscillation at resonance values above 100%. The filter will continue to ring indefinitely even after the input signal has been stopped. The pitch of the self-oscillation depends on both the frequency and resonance values. And this is a really fun trick. I used it in my song The Bloop to give that kind of the sound of of sonar or like a radar or that kind of crazy flailing sounds, shove something in your filter, whack the resonance right up, and then start automating that resonance to give you the new pitches. Quite a fun little technique. The envelope section controls how the envelope modulation affects the filter frequency. The amount control defines the extent to which the envelope affects the filter frequency, while the attack control sets how the envelope responds to rising input signals. Low attack values cause a fast response to input level. High values integrate any changes gradually, creating a looser, slower response. Think of it as adding inertia to the response. That's a cool way to think about it, I suppose. Normally, the signal being filtered and the input source that triggers the envelope follower are the same signal. But by using sidechain, it's possible to filter a signal based on the envelope of another signal. To access the sidechain parameters, unfold the autofilter window by toggling the down arrow button in its title bar. Enabling this section with the sidechain button allows you to select another track from the choosers below. This causes the selected track's signal to trigger the filter's envelope follower, instead of the signal that is actually being filtered. The gain knob adjusts the level of the external sidechain's input, while the dry-wet knob allows you to use a combination of sidechain and original signal as the envelope follower's trigger. With dry-wet at 100%, the envelope follower tracks the sidechain source exclusively. At 0%, the sidechain is effectively bypassed. Note that increasing the gain does not increase the volume of the source signal in the mix. The sidechain audio is only a trigger for the envelope and is never actually heard. The autofilter also contains a low-frequency oscillator to modulate filter frequencies in a periodic fashion. The respective amount control sets how much the LFO affects the filter, and this can be used in conjunction with or instead of the envelope follower. The rate control specifies the LFO speed. It can be set in terms of hertz or synced to the song's tempo, allowing for a controlled rhythmic filtering. Available LFO waveform shapes are sine, creates a smooth modulation with rounded peaks and valleys, square, triangle, sawtooth up, sawtooth down, and sample and hold, which generates random positive and negative modulation values in mono and stereo. There are two LFOs, one for each stereo channel. The phase and offset controls define the relationship between these two LFOs. Phase keeps both LFOs at the same frequency, but can set the two LFO waveforms out of phase with each other, creating stereo movement. Set to 180 degrees, the LFO outputs are 180 degrees apart, so that one LFO reaches its peak, the other one is at its minimum. Spin detunes the two LFO speeds relative to each other. Each stereo channel is modulated at a different frequency as determined by the spin amount. Sample and hold, SNH, the phase and spin controls are not relevant and do not affect the sound. Instead, the autofilter offers two kinds of sample and hold. The upper sample and hold type available in the chooser provides independent random modulation generators for the left and right channels, while the lower one modulates both channels with the same signal. The quantized beat control applies quantized modulation to the filter frequency. With quantized beats off, frequency modulation follows the control source, the envelope, LFO, or manually adjusted cutoff. Turning this feature on updates the filter modulation rhythmically with stepped changes that track the master tempo. The number buttons represent 16th notes, so for example, 4 as a beat value produces a modulation change once per beat. So quarter, 4 quarter notes, 8 eighth notes, 16, etc. Legacy filters. If you have a set that was created on a version older than 9.5, any instance of autofilter in the set will be open with legacy filters in place. These consist of 12 dB or 24 dB low pass, band pass, and high pass filters, as well as the notch filter. They do not feature a drive control. Each autofilter loaded with the legacy filters shows an upgrade button in the title bar. Pressing this button will permanently switch the filter selection to the newer models for that instance of autofilter. Note that this change may make your set sound different. So again, we've got some quite interesting things here. Let's do a few tests and I will show you the results. And we're back. Right, that was some interesting tests as always. Let me just show you the sound I started off with. It's just a little operator patch I made. It's a nice big sub and a good few extra high harmonics up there. Bit of FM synthesis. Project will be in the description, so feel free to use that. So here we go. Let's move into GIMP and have a look. So here is span, our clean signal with the auto filter turned off. So you can see there, and then straight away with our auto filter on, not a massive difference, but you can see here some frequencies are being brought up, and also kind of all of these get a little boost. There's just a few little something going on. That's the most bit I can see. Where's that 500 hertz? Something's happening. That's just it going through the electronics. So this is also something to be aware of if you have filters and effects on your channel that aren't being used. So let's say, for instance, I could have this on my drums and then I'll be automating. It's important to then automate the auto filter to turn off. Otherwise you are going to be adding these extra frequencies, this extra digital dirt, which is not going to help you in the long run. So let's have a look at OSR should be next. Boom! Look at that. Look at that dirty boost. Looks like the balance has been kept pretty similar, but we've gone from, what's this, minus 33 dB up to minus 21, minus 18. That's a good old bit of boost that's been added on with that drive. But it doesn't look... some interesting things. This frequency here, where's that 600 hertz? That's not being boosted at all. That's like staying cut. But again, we've got this big bit of dirt in the 500 there. Also, just pulling up these frequencies, whereas that 100 hertz from nowhere, just coming right up on the noise floor. MS2. That's not too different from OSR, but you can see again just a little more boost. These 2K, 3K area, they're almost peaking off the top of span now. Weird little hump here in the 800. Yeah, quite interesting. And let's compare that to our clean. See a big boost there. PRD compared to the MS2. This is quite interesting. Very interesting. PRD seems to be adding a lot more frequencies. You can see that big hump here at 150, 130. And then between all of our harmonics, all of our overtones, it's adding these extra bits. Quite clear gaps here that are all starting to be filled in. So that's some real nice harmonic content. When you start sweeping that filter around, that's going to give you some nice sounds. And lastly, SMP. Relatively clean, to be honest. Boosted obviously, but this 500 is still a bit of an issue. We still get this little bit over the 100. So this is just the filter set at maximum, not actually being used, so that's just with its frequency right up at the top. So this set of tests was done with the auto filter set at around 1K with a boosted resonance. So let's have a look. This was our signal when it's off, and this is clean. So you can see it's done quite a good job of cutting below 1K, and it has indeed added a bit of resonance around this 400, 600 region. A little boost there, and not really done much to our subs. Let's go to the OSR, and now we start playing the fun game. So when you've got the frequency set all the way at the top and the resonance down, it's not bypassed as we saw from the last test, but it's really not getting a mass amount of difference. Whereas once we start actually pushing some of this, we've got things going through the circuitry and we're going to start getting some nice sounds. So, boom, boom, OSR, real load of frequency around here, load of resonance, all of this lovely low mid-end dirt. Boosted that sub quite a bit, boosted that frequency up as well as where our resonance was, that's been boosted. So let's have a quick listen to this one on OSR. So before and after. That's going to give you so much of your sound. And when we start playing with the frequency position, real nice bit of grit to that sound. Next up, the MS2, and you can see that's quite interesting here. It's given us more gaps, so I would say potentially less dirty. You can see here it's just kind of boosting all the frequencies up a bit. The MS2 seems to be doing more harmonic attacking. It's going for the overtones. You can see it's rolls off quite uniform here, whereas with the OSR we've still got a few weird peaks and troughs. The MS2 seems to have quite a nice clean. Not done too much here, like I say, but what it's done is interesting. That it's let's see if these are actually the harmonics. So we got OSR to MS2. Sounds like a good bit of kind of grit that's there, which is nice. Let's just press hold here and have a look. So our main is an F, and what are these overtones? B, F to B, that's not a good one. C, so there's our fifth at least, or C sharp more. F again, so there's our second fundamental. A, so F to A, it'd be a major third, wouldn't it? Yeah, F to A is a major third. There, another C, which would be our fifth. So this seems to be quite a musical filter, if that makes sense. The MS2 seems to be picking more overtones which will fit in with our sound. Right, what's next? The SMP. Interesting. That's done a very good job of cutting out the top. Not done too much in our 100s. Really rammed that 400, 600 up. So that second fundamental, is it clipping? I think it might even be clipping. Let's have a quick listen. SMP. That sounds like the higher frequencies are much more present in there, and the low end sounds a bit muddy to me. It might just be the headphones. Whereas the MS2 had grit in the low end, that sounds like it has mud. That's got a bit of like gritty beef in the low end there, the MS2. Whereas the SMP feels like it's more about the higher frequencies. I might be mad. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm completely wrong. PRD, let's have a little look at what this one looks like. PRD, again, a nice big old chunky boost, that 400, 600. This one's given us a bit more dirt again in the 100 to 400 region. But let's actually see if they're fundamentals or not, because we've got big gaps in it again as well. So let's just have a look. Our main is a F. Where are these? G, C, that's our fifth again. F sharp, it's a little bit weird. Up here should be our A, and then our C. So yeah, it's picking up the right fundamentals again. It's picking up the right overtones. There does seem to be a lot of dirt here though. Look at between those frequencies, all of that. Just something to be aware of. That can be good, it can be useful. It can also mud up your mixes. And the last test was on clean. The high pass filter, or any of the filters, should be the same as EQ8. So here is high pass filter at 100 Hz on the clean setting of auto filter, and here is the high pass filter 100 Hz on EQ8. So the manual says they're identical. Do they look identical to you? I don't think they do. Let's check this again. So we'll come to our filter, let's go to clean, let's set this to 100. Resonance down. You guys see that? That's not got rid of all of our low frequencies. It hasn't. Let's turn the EQ8 on. That has got rid of all of our low end frequencies. So if you are using auto filter to tidy up your mixes and you're using it to do surgical EQing, cutting out the lows or cutting out the highs in things, do be aware that this slope function, 12 dB, 24 dB, that is reducing the frequencies by that many dB per hertz as it goes down. So that means is if this is at 100 hertz, as it goes to here, as the frequency goes down, it's lowering the decibels more and more and more. But we can, as you can see, it doesn't work. It straight up does not work. We still have that low end dirt in there. One of the ways I get around this is just by duplicating. So let's have a look now. So 2 auto filters looks more like the EQ8 to me. See the difference? See? So even though the manual says they are exactly the same, I would beg to differ. Look at the results. So that is the that's kind of some of the nitty-gritty of what's going on with autofilter. The fun stuff comes with messing around with the LFOs and the movements, basically. So that's all the boring testing stuff out of the way. Let's have a look at the practical uses of this. So the sound we've got here, I'm going to change this to MS2. Had some nice grit, didn't it? I can dig that. So let's have a quick look at the LFO. I'm going to set it to rate mode. We're going to come to eighths, whack the amount right up. Shape we'll keep on sine. Leave the phase and offset for now. Drive, resonance, and let's see what we got. I'm sure most of you recognise that kind of sound. Super achievable. A lot of people are using Serum and Massive nowadays, trying to think they're getting these massive VSTs to kind of build up their sound design. Basic knowledge of your ASDRs, FM synthesis, and filtering and processing really can get you most of the way there. So we did this last week. I'll do it again now. I'm going to get my glue compressor, threshold down, makeup up, soft clip on. Just to kind of boost those frequencies a bit more. And then we can go and have some fun, show automation, or we could map it to a macro if we group all of this. Let's go Control G, open this up. Map rate. Whoop, sorry guys. Map rate there. So now we got. Super usable. Autofilter is one of my most used creative sound design plugins. And when you start messing around with this resonance, you can get some real nice, subtle and not so subtle changes between your sounds. So we got sorry for any of that feedback, but that's quite fun. If we were to take this, resample it, so let's just go audio track, resample, hit arm, come up here, turn you resonance right up, that one. So now we have that as something we can use. We could also now take it without the resonance here. So let me just record one of them. I'd say this one's too loud, -30. And then we could insert audio track, resample mode, take that whole thing. And then rename this F wobble bass. And there we go. We've got a sample we can use. What is it on eighths? So I could go one step better and go 172 eighths. And now we know exactly what that is. We can use that. We could resample that. We could chuck that in a sampler or a simpler, or do whatever we want from there. What are some of the other things we can do? Let's take the LFO off now and have a look at the envelope. So that's just opening it up when it gets the signal. So we'll go from lower. So it's really up to you what way you'd rather work it. To be honest, I don't really use the envelope. I do that with my kind of ASDR in Operator. Manually adjusting the filter frequency is the other way to do it. So we can do it with the LFO or straight up here. So And then if we were recording, this button up here to record our automation, play it in. If that's the way you wanted, so inclined to do it. And lastly, I'll duplicate again, just so you guys have it all basically. The last one, we will go in and use the sidechain. So let's unmap this one. And what should we use? I guess one of my kick drums, Nero D&B, one hits, kick, G kick. There we go. Let's get this kick and we're just going to go boom ga, for instance. Let's loop these. Come up here to our instruments, sidechain on, input from kick. So now if we go, takes a little bit of fiddling to get it all right. You need to kind of balance the frequency with the envelope. But once we've got that, we've got this kind of cool little... and start getting some cool, nice rhythmic stuff. So if you were to build this all up, you'd have some real nice kind of movements you can get around, slamming everything, getting things locking together. So let's just record something in here. So we've made a good few sounds with the auto filter. Hopefully you guys have a bit more of an idea how to use this and some of these special features. Like if you didn't really ever look here, you might not have known about MS2, SMP or PRD and just the amount of sounds you can get out of that. Oh, I haven't looked at the morph either. This is a fun one. So let's just do one more with this. Let's come to morph mode and then I'm going to map that to macro 1. So that's not what I wanted to map at all. Map to filter type. Then unmap from morph. So now we have this. Sorry guys. This is quite a nice one. If we automate that down here somewhere up to there and back down. And then we could also automate the frequency with it. Then if you have a look at that through span, that's it for this week's episode, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget project files in the description. I've been Ollie. This has been Stonx Music. See you next week. Bye.